It was February 9th, 2004, when Maura Murray vanished. A bitter New England winter wrapped the landscape in snow, and the darkness of early evening would soon hide one of the most enduring mysteries in modern American true crime. Maura was 21 years old, a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. She had a bright future, excelling academically and athletically, once a standout runner in high school. But beneath the surface, something was shifting. Her friends described her as stressed, distracted, even fragile in the days before she disappeared. On the night of Thursday, February 5th, Maura was working her shift at a campus security desk. Around 10:30 p.m., she received a phone call. No one knows what was said. But when she hung up, she broke down in tears, reportedly so shaken that her supervisor had to walk her back to her dorm. When asked what was wrong, she only said, "My sister." But later, her sister Kathleen would say she had no idea why Maura said that. Nothing had happened between them that would explain it. That weekend, Maura met with her father, Fred Murray. He had come into town to help her find a new car. They spent time together, had dinner, and Fred loaned Maura his Toyota Corolla for the night so she could visit a party back on campus. But something went wrong. At around 3:30 a.m. on February 7th, Maura crashed the car into a guardrail. Police reported the accident as minor, but the damage was substantial. Fred would later claim insurance assessed it at over $8,000. Maura seemed shaken, but not injured. She apologized to her father, and they agreed she'd pick up accident forms the next day. But she never did. By Monday, February 9th, Maura was making quiet but deliberate moves. That morning, she withdrew nearly all the money from her bank account, about $280, and stopped at the DMV to pick up those accident forms. Then she emailed her professors, claiming there had been a death in her family and she'd be away for a week. There was no such death. She made no mention of travel to anyone else. Before leaving, she packed a small bag, toiletries, makeup, a few days' worth of clothes, schoolwork, birth control pills, and her favorite stuffed animal. Around 1 p.m., she got into her black Saturn sedan and headed north. No one knew where she was going. She didn't leave a note. She didn't call her boyfriend, her friends, or her family. At some point during the afternoon, she stopped at an ATM and withdrew another small amount of cash. Surveillance footage shows her alone, wearing a dark coat and looking composed. She then stopped at a liquor store, buying a box of Francia wine and some mini liquor bottles. At 7:27 p.m. in the tiny town of Haverhill, New Hampshire, a resident heard a loud thump and looked out her window to see a black car in a snowbank on Route 112. The car's nose was buried, as if it had taken a curve too fast and lost control. She called 911. Minutes later, Butch Atwood, a school bus driver who lived nearby, pulled up beside the car. He saw a young woman standing outside. She seemed cold but uninjured. He offered to call the police. She declined, saying she had already contacted AAA, but cell phone records would later confirm she hadn't made any such call. In fact, there was virtually no cell signal in the area. Atwood drove the short distance home and called the police at 7:43 p.m. When a responding officer arrived at 7:46, Maura was gone. Her car was still there, locked. The airbags had deployed. Inside, police found a soda bottle, her gloves, textbooks, and a box of wine, some of which had spilled. A rag was found stuffed into the tailpipe. Fred Murray later said he taught Maura to do that if the car was leaking exhaust, a makeshift solution to prevent fumes from entering the cabin. Others weren't so sure. To them, it looked like sabotage. Police launched a search immediately. Dogs traced Maura's scent for about 100 yards down the road, then lost it. It was as if she had gotten into another vehicle. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints in the woods, no blood, just an empty road and a frozen silence. The following day, February 10th, she was officially reported missing at 12:36 p.m. Her father drove up and began posting flyers. Helicopters searched from the sky while volunteers combed the woods. Local law enforcement reached out to state police, and eventually the FBI got involved. It soon came to light that earlier that day, Maura had used MapQuest to look up directions to Burlington, Vermont. She had also called the owner of a rental condo in the White Mountains. The call lasted just over a minute. Police never followed up with the property owner. Her family later learned that several leads, like a phone number scribbled on a piece of paper in the car, were never investigated. Over the years, dozens of theories emerged. That she ran away, that she died of exposure in the woods, that she was picked up by a stranger or someone she knew. But none of those ideas ever turned into leads. In 2021, a potential break came. Bone fragments were discovered near Loon Mountain, roughly 25 miles from where Maura had vanished. Hopes were high, but after forensic testing, they were ruled out as hers. In recent years, online discussions have circulated claims about a possible fingerprint found in Maura's car, and suggestions of a connection to someone she once knew. However, law enforcement has not publicly confirmed any fingerprint match, and no suspect has been officially named. The Murray family has continued to press for transparency about all physical evidence in the case. Her sister, Julie Murray, has since become the family's public voice. She believes the investigation was botched from the beginning, that key search areas were skipped, that the condo owner was never interviewed, that more could have been done. 20 years later, Maura's disappearance remains one of the most haunting cold cases in America. A car in a snowbank, a rag in the tailpipe, a young woman who walked away and never came back. No note, no goodbye, no trace. This is the story of Maura Murray.